a neighbour, the word has the root near in it. We can see it in nahe. In German it's more clear, Nachbar. And in the Latin it's proximus, that's the right next to him. And pision in Greek is the same. And that should avoid us any concept which is too phantasmagorical and not concrete. It means that person right next to you right now, that you can't bypass in the interests of some third world country that you can't actually help directly unless it's by sending them some money at a distance. Charity is immediate and concrete. But there is more. We are all on this journey of life together, and we are traveling with fellow travelers. We are all neighbors to each other, according to the modality of our state of life. A lot of you are in the state of life of a married couple, and that has its specific obligations. If one is preaching in a monastic community, one is talking to one's brethren, and there, under different modalities, it has to be lived also. And if it's not being lived, there's something hugely wrong. It can happen. So I want to look into this for a moment today, the quality of our neighborliness. It has concrete ingredients. Now, whether it's a monastic community or a marriage, or for that matter, any kind of relationship which is at close quarters, it could be work, one has to have a certain delicacy, feeling, picking up the vibes. One doesn't go through life like a bulldozer. I have quoted you in the recent past the testimony of Gloria Polo, who was given to understand on the other side, because she was going the wrong way, she was going to hell, that she had gone, as it were, irreversibly into a dark place at one point in her life, when she had started no longer to feel the pain that she was causing, presumably in the person next to her. Look at that one, it's concrete. Am I feeling what I am causing, for better or for worse? In a monastery, it's made of little things which have to be healing. For instance, a little billet that one might, in a silent community, draw, adding to the message a few words, a smiley with a little dig. It makes all the difference in a small community where one is always in the same aquarium, bumping into the same fish 24/7. And so also in marriage. We don't just treat each other as bits of furniture. Each one is there with his feelings. And you little children, remember that, because the time will come when Daddy and Mammy are no longer there. And then one looks back and says, I wish I had been more grateful. I wish I hadn't let that word go out. But it's too late. We can't say sorry when they're no longer there. Or thank you. But there is more. In a certain intensity of proximity, another dynamic enters in. It's picking up the deeper level of the person next to us. Now, for you young people, wherever you're at in your life, this person right next to you, if he's of a different sex, is going to be perhaps your husband. So already you have to work on this and see, is this going to work, or am I just looking at the body? Because the body will get old, and the soul is what is left. And you marry a soul. That, therefore, has to be looked at. The quality of bonding. And by the way, if you young people are thinking of marrying somebody who's not in the faith, think carefully. Or if they're not in the Catholic faith and have a living faith as, for instance, evangelicals or Anglicans, think carefully. Because what is going to happen down the line is this. For the sake of peace, one will opt not to insist on certain things, and they'll end up as nothing in particular, neither fish nor fowl, because one couldn't share the most precious thing. How can one love Jesus and Mary and not honour them together? How can one marry a person that one can't share one's soul with precisely? If one has a deep faith, it has to be shared, or the marriage is going to be a purely legal contract with a human basis. And therefore, one's marriage has to be done under Christ, and He knows the person suited for you. So does your guardian angel. I remember years ago talking to a lady, a lovely lady of faith, who had lost her husband, but then this person started coming towards her, and she said to him, "You ask your guardian angel to ask my guardian angel if we are to marry." And he did, and I think she asked him to get the guardian angel to give a sign, and it came, and they were married. By the time I met her, she was a second time a widow. But that's the importance of a marriage partner, as it is actually of a monastery if one wants to enter a community. I want to go further. With regard to deep relationships, it has to be reaching a point where one is relaxed, not to have to talk. In a courtship, initially, a person wants to impress. He will come out with an unstoppable flow of words, jokes, remarks, signs of brilliance, but he won't yet, or she, be able to not talk. It's when friends are happy not to have to talk that they can relax one soul upon the other. And I don't mean just watching a television together. I mean just happy to travel together and not have to blot out silence. Why? One actually meets a person more deeply in silence, as one does with him. Listen to this from the diary of St. Faustina, because the same dynamics are actually at work with our relationship with Jesus. Silence is a sword in the spiritual struggle. A talkative soul will never attain sanctity. The sword of silence will cut off everything that would like to cling to the soul. We are sensitive to words and quickly want to answer back, without taking any regard as to whether it is God's will that we should speak. A silent soul is strong. No adversities will harm it if it perseveres in silence. The silent soul, notice, is capable of attaining the closest union with God. It lives almost always under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and there's a reason for that. We can't, if we're in emission mode, pick up the gentle impulses. It works between man and man, and between God and man. God works in a silent soul without hindrance. And in another part of the diary, the Lord himself says to her that he cannot delight in, the equivalent would be extrovert souls, souls that are always emitting. He wants us to learn interiority and capacity to take in and pick up. And by the way, experts tell us that in the Garden of Eden, man had a greater capacity to pick things up. but that it was one of the things that was lost, but that it can be in some way, in some measure, recuperated, that we can train ourselves to sharpen the antenna of the soul. It starts with not giving off, but calming down. And I've told you before about the way that the Lord gave Sister Consolata, a Capuchin who had a great interior life, this interior mode of being in which she wouldn't tolerate one thing in her soul in particular, a lack of calm. And he taught her that it was like a pool, which instead of being crystal clear, if one ruffled it with a rod, became muddy. And so the soul can't pick up the gentle movements. Do you know that this is a constant in the spiritual life and can be found already in the Old Testament? Who was present on Mount Tabor with the Lord? Moses, the law, Elijah, the prophets. Remember Elijah? Like Moses, he went a long way and he ended up on the Holy Mount, Horeb. All this movement took place, and then the stillness. The Lord was not in the earthquake. And this still, small voice, what are you doing here, Elijah? That is looked upon as the original monastic experience, and it can be claimed by the human soul wherever he is. Why? The human soul always has the same structure. And this bit that we lost a bit in Eden, we must find again and recuperate. And that means, my friends, the quality of the 24 hours, sorted out and looked at and placed under the authority of the High King, the Alpha and the Omega, who has given us the use of time for only a short moment compared with eternity. So it matters that in the 24 hours we too go apart and hear the still small voice. The best moments of all are the pre-dawn, the night hours, and the Lord gave the example. We need to take care of our encounter. As between a really interiorized couple, they will want to be alone with no interruption. So too with the soul and its beloved. If we love Jesus, we will take care of that moment. And other things, and you know what they are now? All those moments frittered away on social media, YouTubes, useless talk, useless messages, all that is not more important than those moments of silence when we do nothing at all, but in which we are doing the one thing that matters, meeting our King, giving him honor and praise for the best that we have. I just finished with a quote from the Purgatory Manuscript where the Lord teaches this to the soul and would say the same to us. Holy Communion is the summit. He indicates that he wants that space entirely for himself. He asks a long moment of absorption from this soul. Wants the thanksgiving prolonged as long as possible. And he goes on to give her an indication of what he's actually expecting. The first quarter of an hour will be for you as usual. The second quarter will be for him. Then he goes on to give the teaching about passing the whole of the day in that presence. Heart to heart with the one the heavens can't contain. And he indicates that when she gets into that intimacy, she has power over his heartstrings. I conclude, my friends, we're only here once, Friendship we need between each other. Quality of joy we also need it with him. You know, Elijah, he had a friend. He called him Elisha. And before he was about to be taken up in glory, his disciple was with him. And Elijah told him what was going to happen. And he wanted him to stay. And 3 times, Elisha said, "As the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you." And eventually he comes with him to the point of departure. And the mantle falls upon him. That's bonding in the Lord. As the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you.